Hello there, back again, vinyl community and fellow space cadets. It's been about a month since I've made a video, but I've got a stack of records for you today. It's a cold December evening, but it's warm in here in the record room. We've got the turntable spinning, so let's get right to it. You know, when I look for records, there's a number of things that I look for. It's got to be, well, cool for number one. Number one is always cool. It has to be cool. The artwork always does it for me, whether I hear it or not. Cool song titles, background story of a band. Or, you know, for anything for me just to roll the dice. And this particular artist right here, I was attracted by the artwork. Get this. Basically, it's an astronaut with some beam going through his body, which is pretty cool. The artwork is fantastic, and the music matches it. I mean, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's playing on the turntable right now. And this is by a guy named Wojciech Goczewski. Wojciech Goczewski. And it's called Reality Check. He's a Polish guy, and he's known for doing soundtracks, sci-fi, horror. So he has a lot of credits under his belt as far as IMDb goes, but he only has a couple of albums. And this is his first album of 2016, and he just dropped another one a couple of weeks ago. I heard a little bit of it. I like it. It's not as full as this one. It doesn't have that nice, I don't know, motoric, driven flavor to it, where you could drive to this. You know, it's not something that you would meditate to. It's very engaging, hypnotic, and you could almost tell a story within your mind, you know, by this music. So take a chance on this if you like electronic music. Yeah, then, you know, of course, we use certain artists as references, and lately we've been using John Carpenter. His music has seemed to have gotten some type of revival. But yeah, it's kind of like the John Carpenter thing. You know, it's soundtrack music that's just cool as heck. And I would rate this higher than just about any of John Carpenter's. My opinion, flame me, but that's my opinion. So the last time I talked to you was the day before Thanksgiving, and, you know, it was a nice Thanksgiving, but the day after that is Black Friday Record Store Day. So I did pick up a couple of things. 2 releases. Now the first one is an album that's near and dear to my heart. It's one of the best neo-psych albums that I've ever heard. It's totally embraced and ingrained in my DNA. It's just soaked in there because I probably listened to the album thousands of times. And it's Porno for Pyros, Good God's Urge. This is the first time it's ever been on vinyl. Now it's been on CD, maybe a couple different reissues, but they put it out finally. They only put out a couple thousand copies, maybe 3,000, I can't remember. And what's a little underwhelming about this is I remember when the first one was coming out. Now, if you don't know Porno for Pyros, you know Jane's Addiction? Well, their first 2 albums are my favorite albums of all time. So those albums rank as one album, and it's number 1. So they broke up, and I just waited for any project from their lead singer Perry Farrell to come out. Anything. You know, the internet was just kind of coming around, so we were getting some news on the internet front. Rolling Stone magazine had a little bit of some articles as far as what was going on, but really we didn't know what was going on with him. But then we heard his project, Porno for Pyros. They had one album, it was pretty good. Then they had this one, and we waited and waited. And then it was going to be dropped, and they had to work on the artwork. I guess there was some other pictures and photographs inside besides the main one that they had to do. So it delayed it by 2 weeks. I mean, I remember that. And that's how bad I was waiting for this album. And what's a little underwhelming about this is there's no artwork in it. I mean, it's just a sleeve. You know, the original artwork that came with this is not included. And it's a little flimsy. So it's a little ironic that once you finally, they were so concerned about the artwork, and once you finally have a great platform to show it, they don't. You know, I mean, it's much bigger than a CD. Obviously, that's why we don't like the LP covers, you know, instead of the little midget CD sleeves. But anyway, this is great. If you haven't listened to them, it's just warm psychedelic music that just kind of takes your troubles away. It's nothing heavy, but it's really intricate and has a lot of great ideas. And you know, if you're into Perry Farrell's work, you know the guy is he's a genius. The second one I got was Timothy Leary album called The Psychedelic Experience. And I say Timothy Leary because we know him more, but it's also got Timothy Leary, Ralph Metzer, and Richard Albert. All three are doctors. So about this is back in the early 60s they were doing research on LSD, and they wrote a book. They started in 1962. They published it in 1964. And the book was called The Psychedelic Experience, basically how to take LSD. And they fashioned it on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You know, I've read a little bit of it. It's okay. I mean, I'm not a drug taker. This, to me, is just a piece of 60s nostalgia, 60s history. Of course, this is the reissue. I really wanted to go, look at this, it's pretty cool. Look at that splatter vinyl there. But if I really wanted to go 60s nostalgia, I would buy an original, but an original is going to cost you about $150 for a nice clean copy. And I'm not willing to spend that. But that would be cool. I mean, I wouldn't mind having one. You know, it was just a sign of the times, you know, a spoken word piece on how to take LSD. And if you don't know, John Lennon actually, when he wrote, when they were the Beatles were writing Tomorrow Never Knows, he lifted some of the lyrics from here. So, and when you're listening to this, you hear that. It's like, that's on Tomorrow Never Knows. So, and Lennon was known to do that. Like when he wrote for the benefit of Mr. Kite, he found an old flyer of a circus and basically almost verbatim, you know, sung the flyer. That was just part of his genius. So that kind of inspired me to bring out some Beatles. You gotta have the Beatles, man. Every so often you gotta have that fix. And in my opinion, the best one, Abbey Road. Then I picked up Ram, listened to that for a bit. I think this is the best Beatles solo album. It just, in my opinion, it's engaging, it's psychedelic, it's fun. I mean, he really seemed to be having a good time. He was totally energized, Mr. Paul McCartney here, Ram. And if you've ever heard it, and I know a lot of people haven't, you know, you take it for granted. There's a lot of young folks. This is a great album, one of the best of all times. So pick that up. Also, I was wandering around a antique mall. Oh, it was around Christmas. No, it's not Christmas yet. It was around Thanksgiving break, and I found this. I've been looking for this for a long time. I didn't know much about the music, but I like the movie, and I just figured it would really be cool in my collection for vinyl. And it's pleasantly surprising. I mean, it sounds good. There's a futuristic tone to it. It's not as futuristic as, you know, say what I'm playing now, the like a John Carpenter album, you know, with all the heavy synths and stuff. There's a lot of classical stuff going on, but it's a nice listen to, and it's he tries to. Let's see, who did this? This was Jerry Goldsmith. So when I say he, it's Jerry Goldsmith. He puts a lot of futuristic tones in it. And this was the same year he won the Oscar for The Omen. So I think he put out five soundtracks that year, and this was one of them. Now, one of these scenes here is very close to home. If you've seen Logan's Run, you've seen this scene here at the end where they dive into the whirlpool with all the stone monoliths and granite. You know, it's a water garden. They dive into it to re-enter the city, I guess, to let the people out. Well, this is a real place. It's here in Fort Worth, and it's called Fort Worth Water Gardens. And they built it, I think, in the early 70s. And it's a place that I used to play at as a kid. My parents would drop us off, and we would just go crazy. There was giant mountains made of just stone, and you could climb them just like a mountain. And you know, for a kid or for an artist, for basically anybody wanting to relax, it was just a wonderland. And I'm not surprised this is why they chose this particular location for the movie, because it was kind of futuristic at the time. Unfortunately, about 10 years ago, there was a group of church group from up north. I can't remember exactly what state, but they went to visit this, and one of them fell in, and another person jumped in to try to save him. And when it was all over, I think there was about 4 or 5 people who had died. And they closed the park, and they redid the whole thing. I think now it's only 2 feet deep, where it used to be like 9. I think it was like 9 feet deep. And I was really surprised that nobody had drowned up to that point. But it was, it was not happy news, back then, especially a place that was so near and dear to my childhood. But yeah, Logan's Run. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, check it out. If you haven't heard the soundtrack, check that out too. That's good. Now, there's a band that I've been following for a while, but I haven't bought any of their albums. They're from Denmark, and they're called the Orson Space Collective. And this is their latest album. It was affordable. A lot of their stuff is out of print, so it's high. It's astronomically high. Until they start reissuing, I'm not going to buy a whole lot of their stuff. But I do like this collective. And it is 100% pure improvisation space music. And this album was probably, from what I read in the liner notes, I think it was created on the same day as 2 other albums. So they just jammed all day, like one day, jammed all day, and had enough material for 3 albums. And this is a double album. And it's really good. This is kind of the funkier side of the Space Collective. That's just a beautiful... Now, I don't know if their leader is Dr. Space, but there's a guy in the band called Dr. Space. His real name is Scott. I don't know what his last name is. And he's got a blog where he does music reviews. And if you look about him, he does diabetes research. So in his main job, he's like a scientist. So he really is a doctor. And he does Spacerock. Incredibly smart. I think you could look him up. I think it's called writingaboutmusic.blogspot.com. And he talks about his travels to all the concerts he goes to, all of his performances. People send him music to review, and it's the latest and greatest space rock. That's where I find a lot of my stuff, is from him. Well, just not him, but just blogs in general. But Dr. Space is in this collective, and he wrote a little thank you note that said thanks, so I kind of got his autograph. So this is a good one. I would check it out. Like I said, it's a double album. First album is on kind of on the funkier side. The second part is more mellower, spacey type stuff. But overall, it's good. It's good stuff. Another one that we threw on. My family was up in the record room, and I have to sometimes play music that they would like instead of just freaking everybody out all the time. And that was Alan Parsons' "Eye in the Sky." You know, these are a dime a dozen. I see these all over the place. So they sold so many copies of them. But the music is so good. It's easy, you know, when you look at the price tag, as like in a record store, a lot of albums are $15, $20. You can find Alan Parsons for $3 or $4. So it's easy to think that, maybe it's just cheesy, not so good music that used to be good. But no, it's not the case. Alan Parsons is good. He's still good. I mean, when I turned this on, this is probably my favorite one by him. And I think this was his most successful album up to that point. I think it was their 6th album. So I was jamming to that as well, for the family. And the Beatles too, and Paul McCartney. They were up here while I had dug them out. Now, this band here that I'm going to show you proves and justifies why we explore. Why we're constantly digging and going through the internet, looking at blog spots, looking at videos that people make, like you or myself. Because we're exploring, we're mining, we're digging. We still haven't found our favorite band, or we haven't found our favorite album or song. We know it's out there. And there's just almost an endless supply. We're not going to live forever, so... And people are making music every day, so you can pretty much say the exploration will just last pretty much to the end of our lives, which is a good thing. So this band here is called His Name Is Alive. Never heard of them before. They were on Line in the Attic. I troll Line in the Attic websites probably about every 2 weeks to see what new releases they have. And they had this in the album, the album cover looked so cool. And the concept was really cool too. They had been to, what is it, Sweden, where the giant collider is. It's the I don't know. It's a hadron collider. They were asked by a scientist to play a concert, and they did. And they were so impressed by the complex that they went and wrote a concept album about that. Now, if I were to see this like on paper, I would think it's a Christian band. His Name Is Alive. It just sounds like a Christian band. And maybe that's why we haven't heard of them, is because the packaging is a little off. People, if you like Christian music, that's fine. But some people, they look at it, they think Christian, they move on to the next thing. They like maybe a country, they like country albums. If they see something that's country, they don't like it, they move on to the next thing. It has nothing to do about religion, it's just the type of music. So, without the context, I never would have picked this up because I thought, Anyway, they got their name, it's very bizarre. Apparently, they were in school, jotting down some notes about Abraham Lincoln, and the teacher was very dramatic and said about Abraham Lincoln, she said, his name is alive. And it sparked something with them, some creative spark, and that's what they called their band name. Now, this has got the energy of, it's a female singer, just to put that in context. And she sings very kind of low, but you can still understand. Very low and soothing and psychedelic. But the background music is very progressive, almost Black Sabbath-y in a way. I compare it to the energy of Rush. You know how Rush writes music for nerds? They're writing about trees and chemistry and this and that. That's kind of what this is. It's like science fiction rock. And it's got that same just really tight energy, that Rush type energy. There's a couple of instrumental songs where you're puts you in mind of Rush. Now, do they sound like Rush? No, but they will remind you of them because the singer does not sound like Geddy Lee. It's just a girl, and there's just nothing more sexier, man, than a girl singing about atoms and electricity and super colliders and planets and science. You know, I mean, after all the decades I've been on the earth, I'm just tired of hearing girls sing about love. So you get them singing about something cool. It's a great album. Patterns of Light, pick it up, listen to it. And they have a heck of a back catalog. I've listened to another one of their albums and I like that too, so that will be one that I'm exploring. Now the last one of the evening is one an artist that I show a lot, but I was listening to him. I picked this one out. It's Wilburn Burchett's Guitar Grimoire. And why was I listening to him? There was a movie that I was watching on Netflix called Love. It's called Gaspar Noé's Love, and he's a underground movie director, very controversial. And this movie is very controversial for its subject matter. It's pretty much full-on sex, and the movie was okay. I mean, the sex isn't what turned me off. If anything, the story just wasn't that good. So people have been bashing the movie, but at the end, when the credits are rolling, I couldn't believe that they actually had Wilburn Burchett as, you know, one of his songs were in this movie. And which one was it? It was The Invocation of the Horned One. And I think it might have been the closing credits, but don't quote me on that. But hey, there's been a revival in an interest in him lately. The Numero Group has reissued most of his albums. They're going to reissue all of his albums. I emailed them not too long ago and asked about that. And they said yes, that's in the plans. Like the Attic did a box set on New Age music. They put that out a couple of years ago, and one of his songs was on that. So he's gaining in popularity, and now he's showing up on soundtracks. So if you haven't checked him out, check him out. He's a guy who plays kind of, they call it occultist psychedelic. He plays on a guitar that he made himself out of 6 different types of wood. And the style of guitar that he plays, he calls impro. Doesn't sound like anything too special, like impro never really caught on. It just sounds like a guy that's in touch with some transcendental headspace playing guitar, and it comes out very, very well. Very psychedelic and very spacey. So, if you're not familiar, and you're a space cadet like myself and like this type of stuff, check him out. That's it, guys. That's it for this week. Hopefully it won't be so long before I do another video. You know, life gets in the way sometimes. You just gotta take care of life. You gotta take care of yourself. And speaking of that, do that. Take care of your life. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the year. Enjoy the music that you listen to. And we will catch you the next time that we see you. Take care.